Fuck tough, do-rag and Tim's kinda hard to get a job back out on the block. Charge that to the game.
Good afternoon. My name is Darwin Griffin, and I'm asking you to welcome me with Expose Under the Sun, brought to you by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. And I am Darwin Griffin. I'll be your guest host today. And I wanted to just go and get an opportunity to go and talk to you briefly about the opportunity I had a guest that was going to come on the show. His name was Kelvin Kohlberg. But I see he may be running a little bit late, so I may interrupt a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about to get a chance to go when he gets here to the studio to interrupt the show for a quick second and invite him to come on in. But one thing I wanted to do first was that I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of to get a little bit into the political arena and talk a little bit about the 13th District Congressional District seat that John Conyers is going to be vacating or has vacated. But the show is live, and I'd like for you, if you have any questions or if you want to contact the station, you can call me at area code 313-365-7379. Again, the call-in numbers are area code 313-365-7379. But just to kind of give you a little bit of my point of view, but what I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about is that it's unfortunate about what happened in terms of, say, with Congressman John Conyers vacating the seat. But the thing is that we wanted to make sure that we've got a lot of people that's going to get an opportunity to go and be on the show. So I think the thing is that as things stand right now, I don't know who are the people that are going to be the movers and shakers that are getting ready to go into the race, but there's been a lot of talk about possibly endorsing his son, John Conyers, as well as to get an opportunity to go, and I think his great nephew, Ian Conyers, is also going to put his name into the ring, as well as State Senator Coleman Young II. So what I wanted to kind of find out from a lot of the viewing audience today is that, do you think that there's a lot of people that should run, or who do you think that could run? And also to kind of find out too, if you think that there's somebody that could run for this office, do you think that they have had enough experience to be able to do that? Looking at some of the candidates, I think that Coleman Young has a lot of experience in doing that. But at the same time, too, I think that Ian Conyers is a new person that probably needs to get his feet wet a little bit more. But I don't know whether or not if some of the other persons, I think the Council President, Brenda Jones, has just declared that she's going to run. And I believe there's still the speculation about Sherry Gate-Ignogo, the state rep, that may also put her name into the arena as well. So those are four very formidable candidates. And I know that there's also another young man that has also challenged the fact that they want to go and to have a special election, and his name is Michael Gilmore. So the thing is that there's now 5 formidable candidates that look to run. And who knows who may be also thinking about looking at the people that are running to determine whether or not if they also want to run or put their name into the hat to say that they're going to declare their candidacy. But the one thing that I'm thinking now is that looking at the candidates that are planning on running, there's a possibility that those 5 may cancel the vote out amongst each other. And that could be sad for the Democrats, because then if a Republican is put into the arena, then the 5 or whatever number of candidates might decide to run, they're going to cancel each other out. So that may make it a little easier for that Republican candidate to get an opportunity to go ahead on and to run. But now there's also the speculation too that there's a couple of people also outside of the Detroit area that may decide to put their names into the arena. One leading contender right now is the mayor of Westland, William Wild. And the other candidate that people are, speculating and talking about is State Senator David Kniesek. So we don't really know exactly what their, plans are because we haven't heard yet from them. I think the three right now, the four rather, between Gilmore, Coleman Young, Ian Conyers, and Brenda Jones, those are the four now that have pretty much kind of sort of declared that they're going to run. But the thing right now is that we're still waiting for Sherry Degagnogo to go ahead on and put her name into the arena. I believe that she's been collecting signatures to get on the ballot. She's been collecting petition signatures. And then the other is to look at Michael Gilmore, that probably, he's got a lawsuit out now that's going to challenge the legality of whether or not if they should have a special election or not. So there's a lot to really see what needs to come about. But I think the thing is that if you look at Bill Wild, the mayor of Westland, and you look at David Kniesek, both of those gentlemen are very formidable candidates if they choose to go ahead on and run. But I think that my opinion is that I think that the five other names that I mentioned that are out of the city of Detroit probably need to sit down and to talk about whether or not if this is something that they really want to do, because of if they do cancel themselves out, in terms of say with the vote, because you also may have a possibility of former state rep Rashida Tlaib that may also put her name into the arena. So that right there may have a lot of people that may be taking votes away from each other. So that may make it easier for another person like outside of the Detroit area to get that seat. And I think there's a lot of Detroiters that would be very disappointed if they saw that seat go to someone outside of the city of Detroit, even though the seat would be represented by, I believe there's 12 different cities in total. And I think some of the cities that are represented in that 13th congressional district are Dearborn Heights, portions of Detroit, Ecorse, Garden City, Highland Park, Inkster, Melvindale, Redford Township, River Rouge, Wayne, Westland, Romulus. And the thing to look at is that with all those different cities that are represented, approximately you're looking at almost it's pretty much like predominantly in that district is predominantly white voters. But then you're also looking in terms of say at it's predominantly black voters, but then you're looking at about 57%, is about for the black voters. About 35% are white voters, and probably about 4% Hispanic voters, and then other races and nationalities. So what we have to really think about is that with all those candidates that are planning on running, you've got to get people to get out to vote. And that's the most important part. Because as people have seen in the previous elections, that we only had roughly about 20% of the residents of the city of Detroit that got out to vote. And I think that we need to really start seeing the importance of getting people out to vote in the 13th district for the candidates that do plan to run, as well as in some of the other races. it's imperative that you don't just wait for the presidential elections to get out to vote. People need to get out and vote for these representatives in the running for the 13th congressional seat. There are other important elections that are also going on at the same time. The 13th congressional seat is taking away a little bit of the impact away from the candidates that are running for governor. So, we have to look at not just focus totally on the congressional seat, but also looking at the gubernatorial race. You've got an important Senate race. You've also got equally important state Senate as well as state representative, and there are 2 school board seats that are also open. I believe that it's Deborah Hunter Harville and Lamar Lemons that they were elected to a 2-year term for the school board. So they're up for re-election. And as people know, there was over 63 candidates that ran for those 7 spots. But we need to make sure that we get out to vote for all those candidates. Don't just wait for the general election. Vote also in the primaries. And I can't explain enough about how important the vote in the primary is going to be for everyone. Because a lot of people complain about things that have happened, that they didn't think that there was representation in Lansing or in Washington for some of the issues and some of the causes and initiatives that people have. So it's almost like we need to get back down to a civics class to kind of educate people on what a bill is. I think back to the old Schoolhouse Rock when they had the song that said, "I am a bill." And we need to really kind of like just look at what are the civics lessons that can be taught now to a lot of adults. I mean, I had civics when I was back in junior high school and also in high school. There's a lot of things that I know I remember, but then there's a lot of things that have changed since I was in middle school. But now what we need to really start thinking about more so is that what is a bill? How is a bill constituted? How is a bill drafted? Who drafts the bills? There are a lot of bills right now that are still pretty much like floating around up in Lansing that now some of the new senators and some of the new state reps may get an opportunity to go and revisit those bills. But hopefully there will be some representation in Lansing that will revisit some of those bills. But again, we can't overlook the fact that we need to make certain that people get out to vote. Voting is important. It's power in your vote. A lot of people think that, well, their vote doesn't matter. But your vote does matter. And I know this kind of sounds like a public service announcement, but I think the thing is that we can't encourage enough people to get out to vote. Make sure that your voice is going to be heard. If you don't vote, then you can't complain about things that are going on in your neighborhood, in your community, in your city, as well as in the state. If you don't like certain things that are going on, if you don't like the person that may be elected as governor, or don't like the person that may have been elected as president, if you didn't get out to vote, shame on you. But if you do realize how important your vote is, then you can make a difference. But one thing I ask people to do too is that I encourage people to not just take, as NAACP always says, take your souls to the polls, but to also take other souls to the polls. And souls are both spelled S-O-U-L-S as well as S-O-L-E-S. And so the thing that we have to really realize is that when you get out and vote, you're conscious. And we're not trying to, I'm not trying to encourage anybody to vote for any particular person. That's something that only I want to do is encourage you to vote. Vote your conscience. There's a lot of slates. There's a lot of people that are trying to influence, how you would vote. Even when you go to the polling precincts, you'll see a lot of people passing out literature for for a candidate that they would like to see get elected. But I encourage people to not just wait until election day, but do some homework, do some research about the candidates before election day. And Google a person's name, find out what they've done in the past couple of years, or what they've done depending on how long they have sought public office. But discuss that with others in your household, in your block clubs, in your neighborhoods. Speak with your precinct delegates to see in terms of say more about who the candidates are that are running. People are not going to try and go and sway you one way or the other. But most people are going to go and say, hey, important thing is to get out to vote. Because if you don't, those candidates that you may have really wanted to get in to Lansing or into the mayoral in Manuglia Mansion or into Washington, D.C., may not get that support from everyone else. Again, my calling number today is area code 313-365-7379. So if you have a question or you have a concern or you just want to make a statement, please call in. Again, you're watching TV 33 WHPR. I can't say enough about some of the organizations that are trying to help to get more people out to the polls. Because a lot of the excuses that people give, there's not enough impact that the persons that are running or some of the referendums that are on the ballot are important to them. But you can't let those things keep you from getting out and expressing your opinion. Everyone's opinion matters. But it's important that you find out when your election day is going to consist of, where your polling precincts are, making sure that you have registered to vote at least a month before that primary election or that general election. And then also to make sure that if you're not going to be able to vote at your polling precinct, that you can go and you can submit your vote via absentee ballot. Some people think that just because of the fact that, let's say, for example, college students are able to vote absentee, especially if they're going to another, city in another state. But we encourage the college students to get out and voice their opinion to vote. Persons that may be returning citizens to research the information in your city, in your state, as to the legalities of you getting an opportunity to get out to vote as well. One of the things that I'm hoping that we can go and look at possibly some initiatives to see is that we can get more high school students to vote. Remember too, if you are a high school student and if you will be 18 on election day, you can still register to vote a month before that election, as long as you will be 18 on that date of the election. So important, find out the legalities, find out the voting regulations, find out the voting rules in your district. If you have any questions, you can please feel free to contact the Office of the Elections and talk to your Detroit City Clerk, Janice Winfrey, or the Director of Elections, and they can pretty much like tell you about the absentee ballots that you may be inquiring about, or in some cases too, they also have sample ballots. A lot of people don't know about the sample ballots, to where you can get an opportunity to see a sample ballot and you can get a chance to find out a little bit more about who's going to actually be running. So if you have questions about whether or not if you want to vote for this person or that person, now you're actually going to see the ballot to know exactly who's going to run. And you're not looking at a lot of speculation about who's going to run, because the candidates have a time that they have to have their ballots in prior to the election to then declare that they are running. They have to have their petition signed, or in some races, they may have to do a filing fee. But it's important that they get those in. I see I've got a caller calling in. Caller, you're on the air. Can I help you?
Yes, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. My name is Belinda.
Hi, Belinda. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. And you?
Good.
The reason why I'm calling is about people voting. And you also mentioned young people who are in high school. But I think a problem is that people are going into the clerk's office, getting applications to sign people up to vote.
Okay.
And some of those applications are not getting back to the clerk's office. And so people are waiting for their voter's card,
Okay.
but they don't get it. Because I can show you an example. Now, this happened many, many moons ago. My daughter was turning 18. And it dawned on me. I said, oh, my goodness. I said, oh, you got to register to vote. She said, oh, Mom, I thought I told you I registered at school. At high school, okay? She never got her card. So I had to call down to the clerk's office where Jackie Curry was a clerk at that particular time.
Okay.
My daughter, she was still able to register, but remember, she registered at school. So whoever that person was that went out to that school and registered those young people, half of those young people, or maybe all of them, never got their card. Because you would think that the first time a young person or anybody will register to vote, that they will vote in the election that's coming forward.
Well, see, and that's something that's one of the things that I belong to an organization called A. Philip Randolph Institute and the Detroit Downriver chapter. And what we do is that we go out and we register people to vote. We're going to be over at Randolph Vocational Center tomorrow, I believe, from the hours of 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, registering people to vote. So I think the thing is that just like in the case with your daughter, Belinda, that what you would probably need to do, in just for our future, persons that may want to register to vote, is to contact the clerk's office to find out, because if you haven't,
I didn't hear you. It's breaking up. What did you say now? To do what now?
Make sure you got your phone, the volume turned down.
Okay, it's turned down.
But one of the things that you probably need to do is to make sure that you contact the clerk's office to find out that you are registered to vote. But prior to the election, at least I'm thinking 2 months before that date. Because we've had that situation to happen, with us as well, where people have complained and said they thought that they were registered, and then we find out that they weren't. And you don't want to find out at the last minute. So my suggestion, to any of the viewers would be basically to contact the clerk's office, make sure that you are registered to vote, because if you haven't gotten that card, at least a good month and a half prior to. But my other suggestion too would be to go and look at the NAACP, because a lot of the deltas, NAACP, APRI, Detroit Downriver, and the Metro chapter, we register people to vote. But if you ever know of anybody else that have any issues about something like that, they need to contact NAACP APRI,
Okay.
to
Right.
let them know those things are
Okay,
going
but on. see, I think that maybe you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Okay, what I'm saying is this. See, okay, she's way over the age now. She's been voting ever since. Okay, but what I'm saying, anybody can walk into the clerk's office and ask for applications to register people to vote. Maybe these applications are not getting back, but it has all the information on it because hers didn't get to the clerk's office. So what I'm saying, they need to put a safeguard in. If I go in today and I say I want to register someone to vote,
Okay.
and I have to sign something, get the petitions, they should make sure that they do a paper trail and make sure those people turn those petitions in. If they didn't go out and circulate the petitions to get people to vote, they should let the clerk's office know and bring them back. Because people, just like you said, they can contact the clerk's office. But if they're not thinking, and this is the first time they ever registered to vote, they could be on register them 4 months ago.
That's
and they
true.
Forgot, and they're waiting for their card. But the card never comes because the information never got back to the clerk's office.
That is so true. And we do need to look at some safeguards in something like that. So I totally agree with you,
Remember, it has
Belinda.
all your information on it. It has your date of birth,
Correct.
your name, your address, and everything. And, that's ways that people can do identity theft on people.
You're exactly right. Belinda, I'm glad that you called in. I hope that we can kind of remedy that situation, especially before this upcoming election comes up with the primary as well as the general election. But again, I just want to tell you that I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to go and call. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity, Sharon Dumas, to host the show today, Expose Under the Sun, brought to you by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. And I am your guest host, Darwin Griffin. But again, if you'd like to be a guest on the show or advertise in the Detroit Native Sun newspaper, that can now be picked up at Kroger's. You can contact Valerie Lockhart at 313-457-5944. And we look forward to joining you next week. Again, stay safe and be good.